You might as well go balls to the wall, fully in, not just the tip. No one's ever seen my nipples. There's this massive problem, especially in the Asian community, where if you're smart, the logical choice is to pursue sciences. Because I felt so hard done by, it really made me want it more. Don't associate with her because she's just a stripper.
Hello, we're here with Sukki Singapora.
Hi.
How are you? Are you good?
Yeah.
I haven't kidnapped her. She looks very uncomfortable, but I promise I haven't.
No. It is a chilly night here in London, so...
Where are you normally used to?
Singapore.
It's in the name, innit?
The clue's in the name.
How do you split your time normally then? You travel a lot. I was stalking your Instagram for this, obviously.
I travel a lot. I'm flying out again on Tuesday. I split my time between... It used to be Singapore and the UK, because my mother's British, my dad's from Singapore, and now it's Singapore and LA, so...
Fancy.
It's not that fancy, because it's not a holiday. It's for work. So,
I'm there like, oh, that's so fancy. You're just like, nah, I just live there.
But you know, it was fancy at the beginning, and then you kind of get into your groove of it's a work-related trip, and then it's just like you're getting on a bus to another place of work. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
So obviously we've done our homework, and there's a couple of people in the room as well, so we obviously know who you are. But for anybody who doesn't know, what do you do? Yes.
Wow.
Yes. List it off.
Okay, here goes. I'm a burlesque artist. I'm a women's rights activist. I'm the global ambassador of a charity called the Sharon Project, which is actually UK based. And I have a TV show on Netflix, which you may or may not have heard of, called Singapore Social.
That's incredible. So I was gonna kick off with your upbringing. So where did you grow up?
That's a very good question.
Well,
I feel like I grew up on the road. I'm a global citizen, but it was actually really a mixture of the UK and Singapore. And I majored at the University of Nottingham in the UK, and then in later life, it's really been, I guess, I'm still growing. So I kind of between Singapore and LA. So I have a massively messed up global citizen accent problem, which changes like the wind, and I can't control it. So I apologize for me sounding inconsistent, but I can't control myself.
So you have like a little mix, but do you flip between the two?
Not intentionally, but please tell me if I do, and I'll try not to. Occasionally I'll be possessed by my British mother, and then I'll be possessed by my Indian dad, and then I'll be possessed by my American friends, and then it's just, I've given up trying to isolate my accent to one upbringing.
That's awesome. So your family as a whole, traditional, non-traditional?
Very traditional, extremely traditional. I'm the only one that has I think I'm the only one that has a non-traditional vocation. My parents are doctors. Most of my family are in medicine. And my sister's a doctor, and my other sister is a vet, so an animal doctor.
Fucking hell, that's me. The smartest family of all time.
Hardest working.
Hardest working.
But, no, I'm kidding. They are really smart as well. But yeah, they're very hardworking, very studious, very traditional.
So what made you go from the traditional vocations, all that, just to something totally left field?
Well, actually, I did follow the path because of my upbringing and start off traditional. So I compromised on doing a science at university, and I ended up teaching myself IT and becoming a total IT geek.
Wow, you're one walking stereotype. I love it.
Wow. Yeah. IT, engineering, medicine, or law. IT.
I'll fix your dog and your computer.
Boom. So I did that, and then obviously I visually, you can probably tell that the corporate environment wasn't for me. Even though I can do IT, I can be a scientist, I didn't want to be a scientist. And I feel like there's this massive problem, especially in the Asian community, where if you're smart, the logical choice is to pursue sciences, because anything else would be wasted talent. And that's so crazy to me, because actually I feel like I got as far as I have because of my intelligence, and therefore I am not wasting it, I'm directing it into my art career. So basically I ended up quitting my job in IT and teaching myself burlesque and becoming a burlesque artist, unbeknownst to my parents at the time, and kind of got good at it.
Wait. So let's pause. So you taught yourself?
Yeah. I taught myself burlesque off of YouTube in 7 days, and my first gig was in a theatre. Basically, how this happened was, I'd kind of got to this point in my life where I knew I didn't want to be a scientist. I knew I didn't want to do IT. I felt like I was being repressed, not just in terms of family, but culturally. I felt like I was being repressed from how I wanted to be as a human being, creatively, sexually, in terms of female sensual empowerment in general. And it was around that time, I was in the UK, that a theatre was auditioning for dancers in this comedy club. And I don't know, I literally don't know why I felt this way, but I felt like it was a sign. And I kind of had heard about burlesque, I'd looked into burlesque. I hadn't had any experience in it, but I was like, wow, this is a art form for women to take control of their sexuality, to empower themselves, to elevate themselves, to express themselves creatively with no particular rules as to how that goes. And so, yeah, I marched on into the theatre. I said, I'm a professional, can you give me a job? And they said, start next Friday. So I had 7 days to teach myself burlesque off of YouTube.
That's amazing. And was that your first introduction to the arts?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I loved art as growing up. I was really into art. Should have probably been an artist. And I also grew up, because of that, with this sense of resentment to my parents, which I don't have anymore. Actually, I'm thankful for the way things have worked out. But I grew up with this great sense of resentment that they didn't let me do something that everyone was saying their daughter was talented in. And I felt hard done by. And I felt like when I discovered burlesque and I threw myself into the art community, I was like 10 million steps behind everyone else. And I felt not angry, but just frustrated. But now I realize you get to this point where you start like evaluating how things have gone, and I don't know, you become reflective as you get older, and you become more experienced in the industry, I guess. And I realized that had they supported me, would I have had the passion that I have now to take it where I've taken it? Do you know what I mean? It's almost like, because I felt so hard done by, it really made me want it more.
It's almost like a reverse psychology.
Screw you, I'm going to be like, I'm not just going to be an artist, I'm going to be the best artist in the world. And that fire in my belly really took me to like these heights that could I have achieved had they said do art at university, major in art? I don't know. So
interesting. That's an interesting spin on it, because like I know a lot of brown people, especially a few people that I always think the older generation slightly, that didn't have that basis or that, like, I guess the balls to sort of turn around and be like, no, actually, fuck you, I'm going to do it. They do have that resentment and almost hate. I think it like festers into like hate.
It's what you do with that energy. I literally don't hate anything or anyone. I know that sounds really weird. Maybe I have like a screw loose in terms of that department.
Wait until my next question.
I don't have hate. And I always see every negative thing as an opportunity to turn it into a positive thing. And even when I'm trying to prove someone wrong, I will check myself and I'll say to myself, don't elevate yourself from that place, that energy place where it's coming from, prove someone wrong. Instead, see that they have given you this opportunity to prove why you are right and really go for it. Do you know what I mean? So I don't have any hate for my family. I don't have any hate for my the cultural stereotype that kind of represses us into perhaps more stereotypical choices, especially the older generation. Actually, I feel like anyone who says, I'm so angry at my parents because they didn't let me, don't play the victim. I know it can be so hard because it was hard for me, and I know I'm not saying like go out there and go up against your family and suffer the consequences, because in some circumstances that can be dangerous. Yeah. But I am a great believer of everything always turning around, and I just feel that if you say they didn't let me and therefore I didn't, use that energy. Use that energy and just go for it anyway. Because if you're a good person, they'll hopefully come back around. And if they don't, you'll inspire other people to be less afraid to do what you did first. Yeah,
that's amazing. That's a great little outlook on your life. Yeah. I'm going to ask an ignorant question now. That was a very serious answer.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
What's the difference between burlesque, like artistry and stripping.
Here we go.
Yes.
Hey. Wow.
Look, don't tell me I don't put myself in danger.
That's a tightrope. There's a massive difference. So anyone who sees burlesque or doesn't know what burlesque is might assume that it's a form of stripping. So yes, there are strip tease elements to burlesque. First of all, there doesn't have to be. Burlesque is one of those open art forms where it's all about the empowerment of women and their sensuality, and it's up to your interpretation how to kind of express that art form. However, more often than not, it does involve elements of striptease, but there's no nudity. And the essence of it, it's all about the tease and none of the reveal. Whereas stripping is all about the reveal and less of the tease. And I'm not saying anything negative about stripping because I believe in females empowering themselves from every aspect and every angle. However, burlesque as well, it can often take a year from like an idea to a stage performance. It really is an artistry. It's not about 3 minutes of getting up and taking your clothes off. It's designing the costumes, it's doing the choreography, it's designing the aesthetic, it's choosing the music, it's tightly choreographing this body of work that then becomes an expression of yourself. And it's so much more than that. And also it originated from Italian theatre. And the word burlesque literally means to poke fun at. So it's a theatrical art form rather than just taking your clothes off. So hopefully that answers your question.
Great answer. I was expecting something like that. This is, damn it, there goes my next question. Can you twerk?
No, but it's one of those things that I guess makes me sad, and I'll tell you why. Because very recently, I'm just gonna give you some inside info. Very recently, I found out that somebody had said about me, and this, I don't usually reveal this, so this is kind of like, whoa.
Exclusive. Samosa Chat's exclusive.
It's the tea. That somebody had said about me, don't associate with her because she's just a stripper. And this person had basically taken a snapshot of my career, had a look at it, not really known what burlesque was, and assumed that that was me. And that really upsets me because I think that there is a misconception about burlesque and it still exists. And why is that? And often the misconception comes from men. This particular person happened to be male. And I'm not saying it always does, but more often it does. And then you have to start to ask yourself, why is that? Is it because they're threatened by a woman taking control of their sexuality, that they feel like they need to undermine it by simply labeling you as a stripper? I don't know. I personally don't find being labeled as a stripper particularly, you know what I mean, degrading. However, it's incorrect, and that really upsets me because, and especially the tone and rhetoric of the place that comes from is very offensive. Mm-hmm. You know, oh, you're just a stripper. What's that all about? And so I'd like to think that, you know, people have said, are you going to do burlesque forever? Well, I can reveal now that probably I won't end up doing burlesque forever. But I never want to step away from my mission, which is always to fight for burlesque artists, because there's something intrinsically wrong about an industry that involves female empowerment and gender equality being reduced to the sentence in this mainstream entertainment industry, don't associate with her because she's just a stripper. And regardless of where I am in any place in my life in the future, I will always fight against that to ensure that burlesque is recognized as a credible art form.
It's amazing. Well, this brings me on quite nicely to my next point. You've already done quite a bit in that fight in Singapore.
Thank you. Thanks, yeah.
I was reading up, I don't mean to be like too grandiose, but I guess you were like almost a figurehead for like was it the modesty laws?
Yeah, I guess so. It was actually unintentional. I was going on my own personal journey because of how I'd experienced my upbringing, what I was pushing back against, and that was in the UK. So when I went to come back to Singapore, because most of my family live in Singapore, I didn't realize the impact that I'd had until I got back on the ground. And I think that's the power of social media, is people hear about your story and you don't realize how many people are following your story. And yeah, it was a shock, I guess, to be placed in the position of a role model But then when I found out that's kind of where it had gone, I really took it upon myself to take that role extraordinarily seriously and always operate from a place of being a good role model as much as I can, without feeling like I'm censoring myself, but still taking on that role of, yes, actually, it's wrong that this is censored, and I'm going to do something about it for us. Which was a big thing, because at the time my dad, he was saying he didn't want me to be a burlesque artist, and he was very upset about it. And it was kind of that choice that I had to make. Do I choose my family and choose not putting them into disrepute, which they thought would be the case at the time. Now, obviously, they don't. Or do I choose these young girls and guys who are literally placing their hopes and dreams on me to do something about this? And at the time, that was a very painful decision for all sorts of reasons. Yeah. But I chose them, and I stand by that decision.
What was that like personally for you then? So obviously we've covered like a little bit about your family.
Yeah, tough, very tough. It was a painful time because it's very easy to say you want to do the right thing. But when the right thing's really hard, how many times do we do it? I don't know. And also because of personal circumstances, I knew that what I was doing would have a massive impact on my family, and that did play a huge role in the pressure that I was feeling to continue being a burlesque artist anyway. That was a really difficult time, and still to this day, that struggle hasn't really changed, because in everything that you do, if you're doing something that's outside of the box, even with regards to this Netflix show, when you're doing something that is perhaps outside of the norm, or you are not necessarily representative of what we believe a typical Asian or a typical Singaporean should do or look like or behave, there's going to be a massive pushback. And it's sometimes easy to get really tired and disheartened, but I think you've just got to keep that light in your heart and just push through anyway. Yeah. So it's tough, but I never let it destroy me. I never let it take me down. I always go, you know what, there's a reason for everyone to be here, and maybe my reason is to just bring the light and push those boundaries, and hopefully it'll be easier for the next person coming after me.
Interesting. That's so just the last point in your family, how did the reconciliation then kind of happen?
It's been a process. My mum Googled me, actually, and that's how she found out I was a burlesque artist, which was a shock. That was an uncomfortable phone conversation.
Yeah. Oh, no, so I said it was the last point, but so you never actually told your...
No, I didn't. They found out. Because as I'd started to garner more notoriety, I guess, if that doesn't sound too douchey.
Fame, I guess.
Fame. Yes. In Singapore, I was in the magazines and stuff, so I was appearing on Google, and my mum found out. So, yeah, they thought I was still in IT, so that was the most uncomfortable, awkward. I wanted to crawl up many dark places. Yeah, awkward. So that happened, and they were extremely upset, and my dad took it very, very hard, because he's an extremely traditional Indian Singaporean. Yeah. How can I say this politely? I think you'll agree if you're watching this, which you probably won't, but if you do, sorry. He's very traditional. Right. And they took it really hard. But I think that with everything that I do in burlesque, I make sure that I accompany it with that feminist rhetoric and give it meaning. I'm not just doing burlesque. This isn't even about burlesque. I am basically fighting for the right for women to express themselves. And with that comes a certain elevated credibility that my parents eventually saw, and they could accept, even if they couldn't accept my career, they could accept that I was a good person and things were coming from a good place. Right. So that's where we're at the moment. And I don't think they'll ever be proud of my career. In fact, my dad has outright said he'll never be proud of my career, which is tough. But, however, they are so proud of me now as a person. And it's still a bit of a slap in the face, but I think that that's progress. Yeah. And really that's the best that we can hope for our generation. And then next generation, we're going to be like stage school tiger parents making our kids do art. And they'll be like, no, I just want to be a doctor. We'll be like, screw you, get on stage, tap dance, now, please, I just want to do law. So, you know, it eventually...
You get in there and you learn how to do this.
You better become an artist.
Oh, that's if there's any consolation, so my parents knew I was a comedian. The first video they saw, I think traditional parents just don't understand. Like, my parents just don't understand comedy.
Don't get it.
They just don't get it. Right?
Yeah.
They'll just be like, what the fuck's this? Like, why are people laughing? And I sent them this video of a roast battle I did.
Okay.
And I fucking killed it, right? Like,
Killed it.
best on the night, everything's great. And I'm like, send them that. Send it via WhatsApp. And the only message I got back, I was battling this like middle-aged Catholic guy.
Wow.
And the only response I got back was, why do you hate Christians so much?
Oh God, yep, typical. That is that's so sad, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? But it's so typical. Exactly, they can't. I got the same thing because I was invited to Buckingham Palace, and for fighting for women's rights, because I was nominated for the Asian Women of Achievement Awards, and I remember thinking to myself, they are going to eat their words and be so proud, and wow, I'll even invite my mum. And I just remember them not thinking it was that big a deal, because it was burlesque related. And then I remember that a couple of years later, was it? Maybe. My uncle, who actually sings for the cathedral choir, he then got invited to Buckingham Palace, and whoa, pomp and circumstance, because it is credible and he's gentry, and I just remember thinking, oh, that is such a shame. Yeah. But you know what? You did nail it, and really, they probably are secretly impressed, but they can't help themselves but to say something about that. And I think it's like, it all boils back to doing your grades. Did you ever get like, oh, you got 90%? Who got 100 in the class?
No, we never got that. Ouch. We used to get cousins.
Oh, they're doing so good, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Classic.
We used to get cousins, and I'm like, oh, bro, this new can't fight his way out of a paper bag.
Oh.
Like,
and then, you want them to be your son. Yes.
Yeah.
So, but have a think about this, right? Because I've thought about that, and I've gone, why are they like this? And then I look at us, and I think to myself, we're a little bit guilty of that behavior. Because somebody said to me, oh, you're not like them because you became a burlesque artist, and it isn't just about, get the best grades or be the most studious. And then I thought to myself, yeah, but, I want to be the best burlesque artist in the world. You want to have an amazing podcast and be the best comedian? Yeah. Are we really so different to them?
Yes.
Or are we just doing exactly the same as they're doing to us, but in our own faculty?
I'm 100% with you. Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Because you're not just like, oh, I want to be a comedian. You're like, nailed this roast, top 5%.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, burlesque artist, global empire, Netflix show. We are them. Just a little bit different.
In different fields.
Different fields.
That's
so you can't criticize them if we're doing that to ourselves.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I do think it is... So was your dad a first generation immigrant to the country?
Yes, he was.
So,
my grandparents were from Kerala.
Right, so mine were the same. Both my parents were first generation immigrants. And I compare our lives, like my parents' lives when they were my age versus like me now. And I'm like, oh shit, no, these guys had it hard. Like, no wonder they weren't like pursuing comedy. They were like busy, like, okay, if I don't work, I don't eat. Right. Whereas I'm kind of like, I've got enough money to do like this. And
I don't know. I don't know. Mine was a little rough not because it couldn't have been easier, but because I went so far rebellious that the only way to get that support was if I gave up what I did, and I chose not to. So I was really struggling and I'm talking about my first job was putting tomatoes in boxes in a factory. Right. Because I would rather have struggled and made spaghetti out of a tin on toast and struggled to pay my rent and know that I want to be a burlesque artist than have accepted a single penny from them and not been who I was.
Yeah.
So, but I do know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Even that is less rough than how they had it.
Yeah. I think that's kind of what I mean. So it's
Yeah.
like, even though I've been like working, so I think my first job was about 15.
Wow,
Right.
yeah.
But the only reason I got that job at 15 was because they were like, no, we had to work at 15, you're going to work at 15.
Wow.
Right? So I was like, and if I never got into that cycle,
Right.
I generally don't think I would be like here now.
Wow, yeah.
So it's like if they hadn't, whereas at the time I was kind of like, oh, but I just want to like play football and like do this and do that. Like, come on, man, please. Like they just like if they didn't take me down that path, no way would I ended up kind of here.
I think that's a lot. I think there's something to be said for that. And I agree in terms of my career as well. And I think that's a massive lesson for everyone, is that sometimes we really resent our upbringing. Sometimes it can be really hard to accept how we've been treated. But really, don't look at it as you were hard done by. Look at it as those things and hardships that you went through have given you some of the greatest qualities that give you the tools to succeed in what you now want to do. So.
Yeah. Definitely. The burlesque activism, how hard was that? So we touched on it. So if you guys don't know, like Singapore has has pretty stringent modesty laws.
Yeah.
What was that like? Did you get like there must have been a backlash. Not even just from your family, but I mean like...
Massive backlash. And there still is. But it's a lot easier. That was 4 years of really campaigning for burlesque to be legitimized in Singapore and seen as a credible art form. Mm-hmm. It was tough. It was a little bit easier because I made sure that I didn't just fight in Singapore, I took it internationally as well. And the funny thing about us as Singaporeans is we're really angry about stuff. Unless it's accepted internationally, then we're a little bit less angry. And then if it becomes like a massive thing, then it's okay, and then that's really Singaporean.
Right. Okay.
So, in a way, I didn't know it at the time, but going out and learning my craft more in New York and going to Los Angeles, and I went to Japan, and I went to Germany and Paris, and I'm offered my own back and my own money, literally doing gigs, paying for the flight, next country, do gigs, pay for the flight. I think that helped because it raised international awareness about burlesque in Singapore, to the point of which it kind of would have been embarrassing then as an international player, economically, culturally, for us not to really start to accept it because everywhere else was accepting it. And I think that really helped, personally, in my opinion. I believe that really helped. But there's still a backlash. And I think that's because our culture, I mean, I'm a Nair, and my family, my Kerala family, are actually matriarchs, but even still, Singapore is inherently patriarchal. And I think the uncomfortability in terms of the modesty really does come with where is the control? Because there are places in Singapore where it's a little less modest. However, the onus and the control lies with the men. And I think the uncomfortability in terms of those modesty laws are when it starts to be, there's a woman and she's taking control of her sexuality for no one else but herself. Where does that leave a patriarchal society? Where does that leave the control of the man? And I think that's where our problem is. So I think that's why we're so stringent on some forms of entertainment more than others. It was a battle though. I even get pushed back right now for my hair. People are like, why is she being like this? Why does she have to dress like a clown? I'm first of all, what's wrong with clowns? And second of all, if it's good enough for Bowie, it's good enough for me.
That's something that I get quite a bit as well. It's like people that don't understand comedy, it's like, what is this, like a clown thing? Or what
yeah, the clown thing.
Yeah,
is
what
it?
is this?
No, we're expressing ourselves because that comes from our hearts, and we're not doing it for attention or to be clowns or to, be different. We're doing it because that's the very essence of our souls, and we have to express ourselves, and we do it if there was no one to see anyway.
I was going to say that as well. Like, I feel like there's people. Sometimes people ask me, like, why did you joke about that, or why did you do it? And I'm literally just like, I just wanted to, man. I was like, and I feel like that's. I feel like the answer to a lot of things. Oh,
Yeah.
why did you do this? Why did you do that? It's just like,
Do you know what it
kinda
is though? I
wanted to.
feel like we live in a narcissistic society because of social media. And because of that, genuine people who are genuinely weirdos are put into the same category as, yeah, I did just call myself weird.
Yeah.
But also,
I shouldn't be
admit
nice.
that may be an accurate description of me for the common man or woman, or anything in between and everyone. But my point is that, wait, what was my point?
I don't know. I was so distracted by the whole weirdo thing. You were talking about narcissistic society.
Right. Yes, I was. Okay. So we are so narcissistic as a society, and we've grown so much to like take those selfies on social media that anyone who's naturally weird, just because they want to be creative, is lumped into the same category as that narcissistic environment. And therefore, I think there's this kickback from the public where they genuinely believe you're doing it to be narcissistic or for attention. And that's not the case. And I think good people like yourself and myself, we're not doing it because we want attention. In fact, I'm very awkward. And people say, oh, why'd you dye your hair? You must love the attention. Actually, no, I get like a full water beard, sweaty pits. I feel uncomfortable when people stare at me. And people are like, well, why'd you do it then? Because I can't help it. I need to express myself. And in my very pores, I'm a rainbow. And if it doesn't come out, I'll feel like I'm repressing myself. Which is why, you know what I mean? It's funny because you think to yourself, well, speaking of Bowie, how would he have been received in this day and age of like a narcissistic Instagram environment? People have been like, oh, he's just attention seeking?
Well,
I don't know.
I always kind of think that the initial reaction to anybody doing something a bit different is always. I remember when people, when I first started doing comedy, I remember the like little jokes. You know the little jokes that aren't really jokes, like they're aimed at you, like, oh, how's the comedy career going?
Oh, got it. Passive aggressive.
That passive aggressive, oh, he's still doing comedy, he's still writing jokes or whatever. And I remember those, and I still to this day, every so often, like whenever I smash a gig, I'll still like chuckle to myself. I'm like, that was funny. But then as soon as like the podcast, like, even though we're in its like infancy, the podcast gets started. There's, I'm like nervous, Sukki. All right, you're just looking at me.
No, that's cool. Infancy. Yeah.
In its infancy.
I just did it about 20 times. It's fine.
Alright, we're gonna have to edit this shit out, right? Yeah.
So you can have that one if I can have the other one. Can you edit out where I forgot my train of thought?
Nobody's editing nothing out.
This is
a straight conversation.
Go on.
Yeah, so it's like as soon as then it's like, oh, okay, cool. Oh, so and so's coming on this podcast.
Yeah.
So and so's followed the page. So and so said he's like funny or whatever. And then it became like oh hey bro, like we're really supporting you and like all of this sort of shit. And in my head, I kind of think, oh, fuck you. I remember that time.
But do you know what's really important is because I've experienced this as well, and people used to say, are you still doing burlesque? Right? Oh my gosh, are you still doing that? Are you making any money from it though? Are you though? Oh,
yes.
Ouch. Well, here I am, paying my bills, so I'm good. But the difference that separates, and I think this is really important because it's very easy for success to turn you, like I've seen people that I really care about turned. And I never knew that was a real thing until I saw it in the flesh. I think what really separates good people who are really, really, truly going to succeed from the masses is now, when you go back to the town that you were born in and you talk to the people that said that about you, and they're like, wow, what are you doing? First of all, it's uncomfortable because anything you say will sound like boasting.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't explain your career to them. But second of all, you have this opportunity now to look back at them and go, oh, are you still working in that bank? Right? But you don't.
Yeah.
You don't. And I think that's what separates good people is that despite everything people say about us, despite haters, because there are haters out there, boy, do I know it, especially when this show started, my Netflix show started, there was a massive pushback, which is now changing as people watch it more and more, but we have this opportunity to literally go, you know, fuck you, and we don't, and I think that's really important.
Oh, mate, you might not. As soon as I get the opportunity,
like, "Go fuck
I'm
yourself."
shitting straight on them.
Ouch. Okay.
What are you doing? Oh,
No,
we're
I've
still
taken
married.
it to this level.
Yeah.
What you've done now.
What are you doing, bitch? Like, come on.
Each to their own. Do you know what I'm saying?
Let me pay your bills.
Okay. Ouch. Why do you need a job? No,
Yeah.
we're not. I'm not about that life.
I'm looking for an assistant.
Could you please do some colouring in for me? I forgot how to use pencils because I now have an iPad.
Yeah, I don't. I don't. Yeah, you can be my photographer.
That wasn't a good one. Sorry, that was quite lame. I could have gone for something bigger there.
Oh, I love a bad joke.
Do you?
Oh, mate, I fucking adore it. Like, that's going to be part of the trailer. Every time you watch that trailer, you're going to be like, ugh.
Actually, I can't watch myself back. I can't listen to myself back. I always feel.
Have you seen your own Netflix show?
No, I've not. So.
So, okay, let's go back a little bit, because we've mentioned it a few times.
Yeah.
So it's called Singapore Social.
Yes.
And what's it about?
Good question. So it follows my life around and the lives of a group of us in Singapore that are doing things that are a little bit away from the norm. And it's unscripted docuseries. So basically it is unscripted. Everything that happened over the course of 4 months. So this team from LA, Netflix, literally flew in and they filmed us and our lives and what happened during that time. Which is interesting because I guess even though I'm very open, I'm also very private.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really like people to see, not that I don't like people to see my flaws, but my uncoolness is a genuine problem.
And there is a lot of that.
Wow. So, well, you know, because in the first 2 seconds I gave birth to like melon seeds out of my face, and then anyway.
Somebody will pay top dollar for that video. I'm telling you, the caption right now, Sukki spits out seeds.
I had three melon seed kittens. So, you know, I don't usually let people into that side of me, and so I wanted to with this. So it's that's what it is. It's fly on the wall. It's what you see is what you get. However, in terms of the pushback, I think that came from people assuming that from the trailer they wouldn't be able to relate to us, and also we're in an era of global citizens and third culture kids, and people are mixed, and if they're not mixed, they know someone who's mixed, and their careers are all over the place, and their accents are all over the place, and that's just how it is now.
Yeah.
And I think that also caused a lot of pushback, because people were like, oh, these aren't real Asians. Well, define a real Asian. Are you Asian? Yeah. Well, then you're real, and you're an Asian. So we come in all colours, guys, and all shapes and sizes, and all forms, and all accents, and that doesn't make it, you know, we need to stop doing that to our own community, because how are we ever going to progress if we feel like we need to fit into this cookie-cutter mould? Or a Samosa triangle.
Oh, bam.
Hey.
There you go. Plug in.
So there was, but now people have seen the show and they tell me that they're really enjoying it. But I haven't, yeah, you're right, I haven't seen it yet. I can't bear to see it. Not because I'm worried it will not be fantastic, because I'm living vicariously through people's reactions, and they have been really incredible. So thank you so much.
Is it something like the most watched? Is it most watched, most like? It's something like that.
If
I was a better host, I would have actually written it down.
It's rating really highly.
There you go. It's something like that.
Which is great. And what's so silly is that haters are even coming on going, these aren't real ratings. I'm like, do I have 200 people? Am I creating are the cast creating 20 different Twitter accounts a day saying you're amazing? No, we're not. That's ridiculous. So yeah, it's starting to rate really high, and yeah, that's amazing. I'm very grateful for that, but I can't. The reason why I don't watch it, and I haven't watched it yet, obviously I've seen clips because people are tagging me in it, left, right, and centre. So I am seeing my face in many clips that I try to click away from as quick as possible. But also, unscripted docuseries, despite it being unscripted, definitely we are given pointers, not on what to say, but say, for example, you're in a room with somebody and you would just chat about normal stuff. We'd probably just chat about watermelons, work. I wouldn't go, how's your mother? And why did she eat 2 samosas on Tuesday? Right? You wouldn't say that. No. But they will say to you, what do you think about the fact that Preet's mom ate 2 samosas on Tuesday? And you'll say, well, I wouldn't really, but if you had to speculate, what would you say? Right? And so then you say, well, you know, I wouldn't eat 2 samosas on a Tuesday. I might just eat 1, or I could eat 3. And then they'll use, I wouldn't eat 2 samosas, I'd only eat 1. Which makes you look like I'm criticising your mum for eating 2 samosas on a Tuesday.
What's the problem with my mum eating 2 samosas, Sukki?
100% none. 100% none.
Oh my God! She's gonna be watching this.
Post-traumatic stress.
You're just insulting
Well, I did
auntie.
3, so all I'm saying is she needs to up her game.
Right, you just insulted mum twice now. Yeah.
No, but do you know what I mean? So it can be edited in a way, but I haven't seen it, so I can't say. But you know, I think I would be uncomfortable with that. And we weren't given any editing control. We didn't even see it before it came out. And I just don't want to. I'm a believer in being kind to everyone, and I like to judge a person by the person that I know in real life. Not that this isn't real life, but I wouldn't want to watch it back and go, oh, that's not every aspect of me. Or I wouldn't want to watch it back and go, oh, my friend said this or said that, because really it is real life, but it's also kind of not. And I think there's that. And also the fact that I am so uncool. I don't want to see the facial expressions that I make on camera. Because already, why are my hands doing this right now? Just look at me. Stop. So I can't bear to, I'm going to have to sit my hands down. So I can't bear to watch that, because I'll be like, stop it, sit down, brush your hair, and have a snack. And I just don't want to watch that back.
Oh, I get what you're saying. I'm like that with comedy clips and stuff. Even though I'll come off stage and I'll be like, oh, that was so good. Yeah. And I'll watch it back and I'm like, for this 3 seconds, why did I look that way? What am I doing?
We are our parents.
Yeah.
Because many people will be like, oh, amazing, so relatable. Where you'd be like, oh, why did my beard do that? And I'd be like, oh, why did I just say it? Why did I spray it and not say it?
I'm the opposite of you. So I'll watch the clip 100 times until it stops becoming funny. Or or I'll pick out, why did I do this? Yeah, I know. It's weird. I'll be getting from a train. I'll be like, my first reaction will be like, I'm great. And then my 15th reaction will be like, oh my God, you can see my nipple.
Why are you watching it then? Why are you watching it then?
Narcissism.
Is it?
Definitely.
Is it, or is it the desire to be better? Because I'll tell you what I do watch back is if I'm doing a proper show, not a show within a TV show. But if I'm doing a genuine performance, I will ask somebody to film it so I can better my performance.
Right,
That's the only time I'll really probably watch something. So maybe you're just trying to better yourself.
Yeah. That's the reason that I give it to everyone. That's why I video it, not to...
What were you wearing when you thought you could see your nipple?
Oh, it was this white t-shirt. Oh, no, should I tell you my worst ever gaffe?
Yeah.
So there's 2 that spring to mind.
Okay, go.
There's a room that I do fairly regularly. Again, did really well. And then I went off stage, went to go see the video on the train back. And I was like, I did not have an erection, but it looks like I've got an erection.
Whoa, did not see this conversation coming at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to strip away all of this,
Got it. Oh my God.
And I was there, and I was like, oh my God, why the fuck does it look like... And I was like, what is going on, right? And I probably paranoid myself out to the point where I messaged another comedian to be like, hey...
Did I have a boner?
No,
Oh,
I knew I didn't.
That would be weird. Okay, yeah.
I knew I didn't have an erection, it just looked like I did. And I was like, hey, did you notice anything weird on stage while I was on it? And he was like, nah, nothing. And I was like, thank fuck. Second, I probably should have started off with the second point. It's a lot more vanilla. It's not going to be quite dramatic.
Yeah, bring it back, quick.
I was wearing a t-shirt and I went to go reach up and then it went up and you could see the bottom of my belly.
Oh.
Which isn't...
That's not...
Nah, see, I should have started with that. Now it's anticlimactic.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Damn. Okay, nothing I've ever done is probably as crazy as that.
No, because any half nudity that you do is intentional.
I knew you'd say that. Classic.
Oh, fuck. Classic patriarchy.
Wow, boom. I'll tell you what though.
Patriarchy.
No one's ever seen my nipples.
They've definitely seen mine. There's a lot of...
Wow, that sounded like I literally have no romantic life whatsoever. That's really sad.
I'm a big fan of that. I like the fact that you're just like, no, I always keep my top on. No matter the situation. I'm showering, I'm having... no.
To be honest, the amount of people that have seen me naked recently are probably just 3 cats in a row just looking at me. Wow, that's so sad. I'm so sorry. Oh
are you okay, Sukki? Is everything good?
So anyway, I never watched myself back.
Yes.
I would say some weird ass shit.
You brought it back nicely.
Yeah.
See, I feel like I'm too respectful with you. I should be hammering you right now, but I'm not. The Netflix show. So we could bring it back to being serious.
Okay.
The Netflix show.
Yes, thanks.
Living under a microscope for 4 months. That must have been difficult.
Yeah.
You're just like, you're still thinking about the cats. Like, shit.
No, actually, when you said that, I thought about. There's a scene where this kid. Is it like Toy Story, or is it about an ant? What's the other one called? Ant's Life?
Ant's Life.
Bug's
Life, that's it, yeah.
The kid holds a magnifying glass and there's this little ant in the sunshine. I was thinking, when you said under a microscope, I was thinking, well, not as difficult as that ant in a Bug's Life. No, sorry.
I'm a big fan of how your brain works. You went straight from nipples
tangent
to fucking Bug's
to
Life.
An ant being tortured under a microscope. Whoa. So yes, it was tough because you may not know from this little interaction, but I'm quite socially awkward. Just gonna let you know that, guys. So having known that fact, I usually spend a lot of time by myself thinking about my career and working on my acts and working on my routines, and I'm like an introverted extrovert. So when I'm doing a performance or I'm in an interview, I'm quite confident, but in real life, I am chronically shy.
Right.
And to never have downtime was an extremely difficult process for me, because even when you see me on screen by myself, there's like 20 people that are all in the room with me, completely silent, just staring at me with like earphones, monitors, microphones, cameras. Yeah. And so there was no let up to that. There really was no let up to that. There was no opportunity to decompress. And that definitely was a lot for me, because even if you're filming, say you're filming a movie or you're filming a TV show, you can go off set and have that downtime and then go back on and deliver. They wanted to follow everything. So when I'm usually rehearsing for a show, or I've got a massive show like you see on the show, I'll spend a lot of time by myself, just getting my head right, getting choreography right, running it over. There wasn't an opportunity to do that because, and personal things that were going on in my life as well, it was a very difficult time for me personally. There was a lot of things going on, and just never having that quiet time was a lot for me, because I really value that time to be not antisocial, but introverted, just to reflect and get my shit back together. Yeah. So that was so tough.
Did they have set up, so I know how you said they'd have the almost like leading questions, I guess, or like.
It wasn't leading questions, but before you started your day, they would be like, oh, maybe you want to talk about this. You hands up in the air. You're accountable for everything that you say that comes out of your mouth, but you're encouraged perhaps to speculate more than you ordinarily would. Yeah. So they're not really giving you leading questions, but they're kind of steering it. You're part of a storyline that you don't know you're in. Yeah. But it isn't a storyline because it is still your real life. But definitely you don't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. So you don't know whether you're doing it right or they're going to turn it against you. You just don't know. Yeah. Did they have manufacture situations or set up situations? No, nothing like that. No, but they absolutely didn't, and everything is real life. But definitely, I would say that a lot of people have come to me and said, "Oh, well done for talking about this or talking about that." I wouldn't have done that ordinarily. So whilst I am very appreciative of people kind of being like, yes, Sukki, you stood up for what is right, and go you. I'm like, oh, that's awkward, because ordinarily I might not have, because I'm not that confident about it. And also I'm so workaholic, obsessed with my career and trying to do the best job possible that I don't even have the time to do it. So in a way, I possibly felt like maybe you're a little bit steered to something, but of course everything I say is what I said. So is it hard work? Extremely hard work, exhausting. There were times where I was absolutely out of it, exhausted. In the final episode, actually, the final episode we shot was this show on C'est La Vie with one of the cast members who's a singer, and Tabitha, and that was the last shot we actually filmed, and I was so exhausted. All I could think about was, I must get to the end of the day, because it was 3 months, and you're just tired. You want to go back to your normal life, eat a snack, do absolutely nothing with no one, and you just have to bring the energy. It's a lot. So yeah, it's intense.
Yeah, because like I guess like shows like that, and even just like, how many episodes is it? 10 episodes?
8.
8.
Yeah.
Yeah, 8 episodes. Oh, that's 8 hours of TV is definitely like what, 800 hours worth of
4
film?
months almost. It was almost 4 months of filming, 3 months and then some. Yeah, it was a lot. Think, especially for a socially introverted person, that's a lot with no let up. You know what I mean? There's no, and also the crew aren't, they're your friends, but they're not your friends because they can't. I liken it to, as a kid, did you ever watch David Attenborough's wildlife programs? Right. And
as a kid, I loved him now.
As a human, I love
yeah.
them. But you would look at like that lion cub that the mother had abandoned, and you would go, David, come on, why are they just leaving it to starve? And they'd be like, it's day 59, and the cub is on his, he said, what? He doesn't speak like that. The cub is on.
I was like, what, is David Attenborough one of the witches from Hamlet?
Sorry.
No, but
anyhow, now he is. So which David Attenborough goes and is on its last legs and it's starving? This 10-month-old cub is likely not to ever make it. And you're like, just feed it and rescue it. I felt like that cub. Because they can't help you.
Yeah. Oh, it's fine. There's just somebody walking around in the background. It's fine.
Oh, okay. I was doing a cut thing.
We're not editing. No, we don't edit shit here.
See, a professional, right?
The start and the end gets edited, and that's it.
Okay.
It's warts and all.
Oh, wow, I just posed in a really weird way, and then David became a statue. And he continued his monologue. So basically then, right, the producers aren't allowed to talk to you. They're not allowed to help, assist you. If you're sad, they've got to stand and watch you be sad. If you cry, they watch you cry. There's no rescue that cub. So you're literally like in the Sahara jungle.
That's brutal.
On your own. And the mother has left you and you're going to starve and they can't give you snacks.
Yeah.
You've got to just live it and you've got to survive. Harsh.
I couldn't do that shit.
Harsh.
After I'd fixed up on every one of them producers, camera people,
there were moments where
headshots.
I just found myself being frustrated. And I'm sure that made good material because my frustrated face probably helped the narrative of whatever is being portrayed. But I would be really upset, and it wasn't even because of the situation, it's because of the fact that you're surrounded by people that, you know, as a professional, I see my crew, everyone that I work with, you over there, and you, and you, and you, as friends. And it's really hard when your friends can't help you. You get upset that they're not your friends, but they are. At the end of the day, if we were all surviving without drama, would anyone watch it?
No.
Probably no. So you've got to set aside your ego and your superiority and go, you know what, this is just a TV show. And if you did nothing, it would be boring. So you might as well go balls to the wall, fully in, not just the tip.
I wasn't expecting that.
Well, you said bring it down more, and so that was my first attempt.
I'm totally with you. I feel like that's a life motto. All the time, just never
balls
the
to
tip.
The wall.
Always just
never the tip. Or
never
just the tip.
Never just the tip.
Never just the tip.
Never the tip. Always just the balls in.
Wow.
Never the tip.
Man, a castrated cat would feel really, really left out of this narrative.
Oh man, that's bad joke number 2. I love you, Sukki. This is amazing. You made me seem funny.
A lot of cat jokes in this. I think she needs to evaluate her life choices.
That's right. Most people have pussy on their mind all the time.
Wow. Oh God, gross. No. Wow. Really? Damn.
You guys have never seen a whole room.
I am no longer associated with this podcast or anyone sitting in this room.
You signed the waivers already. It's fine.
Who are you? I don't know you.
The last point I was going to finish up on. What's next for you? What are you going to be doing?
Okay, some things, I know this sounds really corny, yawn. Some things I can say, some things I can't. I'm sorry. I hate myself for saying that's gross, but it's true. However, what I can tell you is that I'm heading more towards LA, not ever abandoning Singapore because that's the country that literally made me, and so I always want to bring my craft and everything that I'm doing back there as well. But it is heading more towards LA, so that's a massive jump for me, from just dabbing my toes in to just really throwing myself into the entertainment industry there, which is very exciting. And I'm sure that I will come back and tell you when I can tell you exactly what that entails, but that's definitely going to be the 2020 agenda.
That'd be huge. Well, I think we're done. Thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We'll link all of your socials and stuff below. People can go follow you and go see Singapore Social.
Hey, thanks so much.
Awesome. Fist bump it out. Oh, you went for the bow. I went for the fist bump.
Oh, and full one as well.